All right, let's get started. So today's episode, or whatever this is called "The Good, the Bad, and the Cowards." And the reason why I categorize it, if you've heard of the Western movie "The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly," obviously I'm playing on that. But what I'm trying to put out here is this notion. Hello, Stuart. This notion that there are people that we might call good, people that we might call bad, and people that we have to call cowards. And the interesting thing about cowards is cowards can be on the side of good and cowards can be on the side of bad because cowards just fear not belonging. And so they'll go along with whatever is happening just so that they feel like they can belong. So ultimately, a coward is a person that has vacated their own mental faculties to be able to discern between what's good and what's bad. They basically just go with whatever crowd they happen to be with. So if they're with a good crowd, then they're good. And if they're with a bad crowd, then they're bad. But effectively, they're just afraid. And so they get, if you were to give them rewards based on behavior, you could really say that they um, are basically nullified because they're just doing whatever everyone else is doing. And so when I see some of the things that are happening in our society, it's basically the cowards going along with whatever they're going along with, whether it's good or whether it's bad. And now the question is, what is good and what is bad? Now, for some people, good is doing whatever won't get them in trouble because they've been programmed by society and the education system and other things like that, that there's a certain standard that they have to hold to be considered good. And then bad is whatever goes against the standard. And then there's a layer beyond that. And this layer is something that cannot be defined by these kind of rudimentary ideas of what good or bad is, because the true good is whatever brings more life to the moment. So I'll give you an example of good and good, but one of those goods looks bad. So there have been instances in my life where I'll try to give you an example. So without getting into the whole story, there was once a time where this group of guys were decided that they were going to either beat me to death or kill me. And so they were chasing me all over the place. And one guy had a gun, yada, yada, yada. I'm not going to get into the whole story, but I escaped. And then the ringleader of that group, one day I saw him by himself in my neighborhood where he, in theory, should not have been. And I was with another person. And I said, that's the guy who had the people try to attack me. And my friend who was with me, who was always down for a fight, said that we should enact our revenge on this guy. I chose not to. I chose to just say hello to him and let him know that I knew where he was, where he shouldn't be, and that he was by himself so that he could see that I didn't behave the way he would behave. And then I walked away. And I know he looked very scared. He didn't know what was going to happen to him because he knew how he'd been to me. And in that instance, people would say that that was universally good because it brought more life to the moment. He had an opportunity to reflect. I got a chance to stay in my integrity. I got to show my friend, like, hey, we can't be this way just because this person that way. So we can say that that was good. Okay. Fast forward another instance where this guy was messing with me and I several times asked him to leave me alone. And then I ended up catching him, putting him in a headlock, and he was wearing some fancy $500 glasses. And I squeezed his head and his glasses broke. And some people were shocked that I would behave that way after knowing me to be a different way. And in that instance, what looked like me being bad and giving in to the, anger and things I felt was actually also good because this person couldn't stop himself from being an a-hole. And so eventually I had to do the good thing of stopping him and restraining him and then letting him know that that's not the way that you need to behave with me. And so that was a different kind of good. On the surface, you can't tell what's what sometimes, right? So good is complicated. I just define good as that which brings more life, more flourishing, more learning, those sorts of things. And we have to be very discerning. But ultimately, we have always have an opportunity for good, but we can't always judge the outside imagery to see whether it's good or not. Hopefully, that makes sense philosophically. Now, bad, I think there's very few people who are capable of actually being bad. And when I say bad, I'm actually talking about evil. Because in order to truly be bad or to truly be evil, you actually have to know what good is and then decide not to do the good. And so it takes a certain level of maniacal intelligence to actually be evil. And a lot of the behaviors that we see in the world happening right now, I don't think these people are intelligent enough to be evil, if that makes any sense, because they would have to actually conceptualize the grand scheme of things and understand how the inner workings of all life and the way things flourish together and all these principles of creating community and flourishing and thriving and creating abundance for all beings. Because I agree with Buckminster Fuller, who said that we live in a state now where we have the technology so every person can live at a high reasonable standard of living all over the planet. It's true. We have everything we need. But I think that some of these people that we call evil are too stupid to be evil, actually, because if they were intelligent enough to be evil, they would know how to create a more harmonious society and then decide not to do it. So there may be a few evil people, truly evil people out there, but the rest of them are just cowards. And there's another word that I would call them from where I grew up that is PABs or BAMFs. I'm not going to say those right now, but that's what these people are. And when we look at what is happening in Minnesota, they are a bunch of cowards. When you see the footage of Alex Pretty being killed, what I see is a bunch of cowards, weakling people who hate themselves and project that hate out into the world and then attack their projections, as I said before. Many of them have a very diminished sense of being. They think they're worthless. They're ashamed of themselves for being so pathetic that they just want to feel better. And so this indirectly brings me to Socrates. So in one of Plato's dialogues, there's this conversation between Socrates and Meno, and they talk about whether people do things that are considered bad on purpose. And this is the question that Socrates asked Meno. So, and I'm just going to read it directly. So he says, "And do you think that those who believe that bad things benefit them know that they are bad?" Then Meno says, "No, that I cannot altogether believe." And then Socrates says, "It is clear then that those who do not know things to be bad do not desire what is bad, but they desire those things that they believe to be good, but that are in fact bad. It follows that those who have no knowledge of these things and believe them to be good clearly desire good things. Is that not so? It is likely." Then he says, "Well, then, those who you say desire bad things, believing that bad things harm their possessor, know that they will be harmed by them necessarily." So he's basically saying these people don't know they're doing bad things because they think they are good things. They think that by doing these things that are in fact bad, they are achieving some kind of good end. So let's say, for example, one of these like weak, pathetic humans wants to take care of their family. Well, taking care of their family is a good thing. Now, the means of which they take care of their family can be good or bad, but because they follow people in groups and numbers, then their cowardliness says, like, if a bunch of people are doing it, then that justifies it. So I'm not bad. And so therefore, this means of achieving this desired good, which is taking care of my family, is justifiable. But when you see the video, you see what ended up happening. I watched an examination of the footage, is that when they took the firearm that Alex Pretty said he had, they then, one of the things, I don't want to call them officers, walked off and mistakenly discharged his gun. And then in the same fashion that the coward who killed from Orlando Castile did, they reacted like little punks. And they were like, ee, ee, and then they killed Alex Pretty. These people are punks. They're cowards. They're weaklings. And I don't judge them for being that. That's what they are. They don't know right from wrong. They don't know good from bad. They don't have the capacity to discern. And they definitely aren't evil because I said before, they're not intelligent enough to be evil. And so they don't know what to do. And that's why Jesus was like, forgive these fools, except for Jesus said it nicer according to the Bible. He said, forgive them for they know not what they do. Because only one who can see what is good can discern what is good, what is bad, and what is cowardly. So you have to be able to achieve some level of perception of what goodness is in order to properly discern where other people are. So the aspiration, I would say, for each of us is to become increasingly better people, because as we become better, then we are able to more accurately discern what is good, what is not good, and what is cowardly, and to be able to step back even in our own cowardness. Now, I want to make sure that I communicate that the people who are cowardly is sad because they cause a lot of harm, and they literally don't know what they're doing. When Abraham Lincoln was asked what he wanted to do with some deserters, and because they, by law, could have hung them for deserting during war, but he said, no, just let them go, because their cowardly constitution is punishment enough, because they themselves already know that they're despicable cowards. But I'm kind of adding the despicable part. So I know that this sounds mean. I know that this sounds like jerky to people, but the only reason it might sound jerky to some people is because the people for whom it sounds jerky, no offense to those folks, but they are people who are not capable of making a decision one way or the other. They don't want to make a mistake, and so they choose to do nothing. They don't want to say the wrong thing, so they choose not to say anything. And that is also cowardly. Now, what do we do with that? All we can do ultimately is love them. According to the teachings that Jesus put out there, or they say Jesus put out there, either way the teachings exist, it says that perfect love casts out fear. That's the only thing that we can do, is love people, and sometimes hold up a mirror and say, listen, you are a coward. You're scared. I have a friend of mine who said that I'm a coward because I defriended him on Facebook because of his inability to discern. And I just didn't want to see his face. So he called me a coward, but I'm not in this area. There may be areas for which I am a coward, and hopefully I have a level of discernment that I can be able to say, look at me being a coward. But most of these things, I don't have to be a coward because I've already survived enough things that I can discern. Because as a Black person growing up in America, all this stuff, I went through the fear of all this crap when I was a little kid. I already went through this. I already been chased by white people calling me the N-word. I've been beat up and thrown in a ditch and jumped. I've gone through so many things. I served in the military. So the time for me to be scared of these things when I was younger and I was going through them, I already survived them. And once you survive something, it's hard to be afraid of it again because you've already been through it. So I've had my cowardly stages on a lot of things. And there's some things for which I'm afraid. I'll be honest about it. But the things for which I'm afraid, I have the discerning capacity to be able to say I'm afraid and to be able to live into that. Many people just don't. And so when we're trying to figure out how to respond to some of these people out in the world who are going to continue to do the cowardly acts that they're going to do, because they do what cowards do. I've been in situations, I've had like a gun in my stomach. Like I said before, I've been through a lot. I grew up, like, even though some people find it hard to believe because their misconceptions about people growing up in the hood, because I know how to articulate myself. A lot of people think I grew up with privilege, and I've had people say that to me, but really I just grew up poor in the hood. So I've been through a lot of things. And I've had a lot of things happen to me. As some of you know, my younger brother was murdered. What you don't know is my stepbrother was murdered some time back. Well, he kind of started it. So I don't know if he was murdered, but he ceased to exist. And he was a poor white person because I grew up with poor Black people and poor white trailer park people. And I was raised conservative Christian. So I speak about things that I actually know something about. I don't say things because I don't have exposure. There's a lot of people who say a lot of things, but they don't know what they're talking about. And because they're cowards, they can't admit that they don't know what they're talking about. They just say stuff. And so what do you do with them? You can't do anything with them except for to love them into being. All you can do is hold space that if they feel safe enough with you, they can admit what they're afraid of, face what they're afraid of, and maybe do better. But fear is like a drug, man. And if you've ever dealt with people on drugs, which I have because I've been exposed to that a lot. I used to live with a person and went through all of their withdrawals and all that other stuff with them. When a person's on drugs, a part of them is mindful to some degree of what they do under the influence of those drugs. And then when they try to back off the drugs, they remember the things what they did when they were under influence of drugs, which makes them feel shame, which makes them do drugs so that they don't have to think about it anymore. And the same thing happens with fear. People who do things out of fear feel a sense of shame. Then they try to justify the fear that they had, which then they know on some level that they were cowards and that's what they did. So then they feel more shame, which means they justify more. And then they surround themselves with other cowards that make them feel like what they've done is all right because they believe in safety in numbers or the illusion of safety in numbers. So this is what we're dealing with here. A lot of us are trying to figure out how we can change these people's minds or yell them down or make them feel bad. It's not going to work because all they're going to do, giving them shame is just going to make them go more for their drug, which their drug is fear. And so they're going to fear in a crowd. That's their drug. So all you can do is love them. All you can do is take care of yourself. All you can do is hold a mirror up for them and perhaps they might see. But in the grand scheme of things, to recap, only people who are good have the capacity to reflect and see what is bad and what is cowardly. People who seemingly do good or bad, who are actually cowards, whatever they do doesn't matter because they're just going along with the crowd. If the crowd says, if DJT for some reason today decided that he was going to say something that actually made sense, all these people who are saying one thing would then say that thing because they just are cowards. So they can't do any better until they wake up. We can't force them to wake up. All we can do is stay awake or stay woke, as you want to call it. Try to love, try to do good, try to work on our own discernment, be honest with ourselves and our assessment, which is a lot of what I'm doing right now is showing my process and my grief with my brother and stuff is to demonstrate and model going through these things. I'm able to say, like, I can say to my family, hey, I'm having a hard time. Hey, I'm struggling right now. Hey, I'm about to cry like a baby because I'm being present with what is. And there are things that I'm afraid of, as I said before, but I'm able to look at them with the eyes of discernment and say, hey, I'm scared about this, and work with it. But if you can't admit these things to yourself, then you can't be a part of the solution either. Because the main thing is if we can get ourselves clean and clear and polish our consciousness so that we can reflect the light of love and all these things, then we can do something. We can cast our light in the world. If we're sitting there using our fear to try to battle their fear, then all we're going to do is keep doing it to each other. Fear, 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 fear. It's not going to do anything. It's just going to be more of the same. So my invitation to you is to bear witness to your own inner landscape, do the work to clean that landscape up, create within yourself a space that if you do encounter one of these fearful people, that you can hold space so that these people can come outside of their fear just long enough to be able to maybe learn a little bit of something, but don't bet your life on it. Build community with other people who are trying to become discerning. Build community with people who are love, and don't just be stuck in sadness and anger. There's a time and a place for that, but also cultivate joy and celebration because joy and celebration is of the light. And when you come from the light, you can diminish shadows a lot easier. So that's my little bit for today. Unfortunately, because I don't think people stop being PABs overnight, it's going to be a lot more of this going on unless we get some real leadership out there that's able to really hold space. So I'm sorry for everything that's happening right now. It does hit my heart, and I do try to articulate some ways of approaching this because I'm saying it from experience. I have been through a lot of things, and What I would like to do is disappear off into the sunset and not talk to anybody. But like James Baldwin, when he was in France and he was like, yo, I got to go back and say stuff. I got that juice on that. I got that thing on me. I feel like I can't just walk away. So I have to use my capacity to use words and the things that I studied and cultivated over time to try to create space so that people can be reflective, be discerning, be able to bear witness to who they are and who they're becoming. And hopefully realize that all this bullshit that we're doing is very useless, because the reality is that there is enough for everyone. There is enough for everybody to be provided for. There is enough love. There is no God that hates everybody who is on one side and loves other people. It's all love. It's all oneness. It's all unity. But as long as we can't see it because our mind's split and got a schism, then we do what we do. So this is to love. This is the unity. This is the spaciousness. This is the peace. This is the joy. Let's keep holding space for it. I'll do my best to do that. And whenever I encounter you folks, whether it's online, thank you for being here, Jane. Thank you for being here for It's Never Happening, Marianne, Cynthia, Stewart, and whoever else shows up on the replay. Thank you for your time, your presence, and please take care of yourself. Peace. Oh, and if you get something out of this, share it with folks because it's more about expanding the conversation. Thanks.